Yeah,
Nice to
well,
meet
that's
you.
what we're listening for anyway. But anyway, thank you for coming to my podcast today.
Of course.
So I've
Love your
been
stuff.
stalking you. I've been stalking you on your Instagram and I'm loving it. All the perimenopause. It's so big now, isn't it?
It really is. How old are you?
I'm 36
Is that
this
rude?
year. No, I'm
Did
36
you?
this year.
Okay. So you know about it. That's amazing.
Anne-Marie, I was just actually waiting on you to say, oh my God, I'm absolutely shocked. You're 36. I left a gap there and you didn't do it. You just agreed
sorry.
like, okay.
You look like a baby, but I can't. Everyone looks like a baby to me at 52. Plus, my friend just said to me, oh, she's Irish. And she said, my new party trick is telling everyone I'm 41. And I just did not compute because once you get to a certain age, it's like you just looking younger, being praised for looking younger is sort of like that game. It's not going to go on much longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I used to really, So you look great. And you look like you'd be in your 20s. Really. I was wondering how old you were. Was that your daughter with you or a younger sister you had in the video?
It would be one of the girls. I've got two girls, age 9 and 10. Right. So that's rough.
Okay.
And my partner is a female as well. So I live in the house with 3 women.
Oh boy.
So it's really, it's great. It's brilliant. I really love it. But it's hard going, as you can imagine. So me and my partner will be perimenopausal at the same time. And then the girls will be in their menstrual.
Sorry about that sound.
No, it's okay. They'll be having their periods. So it's going to be absolutely carnage in my house.
No.
I know.
That's no good.
I know. So
it's going to be okay.
I know I'll be like that on the phone to you, Anne-Marie. Please help me. So, Anne-Marie, you're a journalist. 25 years. Did I get that right?
It's like 30 now, actually. I've been...
Okay.
I tend to sort of... Yeah, it's been 30. Long time.
Long time. And you obviously love it. I mean, your stuff's brilliant, all on perimenopause and stuff like that. How did you get to that? How did you think, okay, I'm going to just start doing loads of stuff on perimenopause?
Yeah, so I've always written about what I'm going through. Like when I was in Canada, I was a columnist and I would often write about dating or, the various things that were happening to me in my 30s. And then I moved over to the Middle East and became an editor and hadn't done a lot of that sort of more personal writing. And I lost my job in 2017 in the sale of my newspaper and it was a really, really rough time. I had already clued in that I was in perimenopause and had been for probably 6 or 7 years and had not known. Mm-hmm. So was going through a bunch of crazy stuff and thinking it was all real. Do you know what I mean? I went to the ER one night in the middle of the night because I woke up with terrible chest pain and Googled and I'm like, this is a heart attack. Everyone took me really seriously. I had a big cardio workup, terrible headaches. I went to the ER. I was just probably I had adrenal exhaustion. My eyelashes fell out. That's an extreme thing, but some other stuff was going on, obviously. But I saw probably 12 doctors and naturopaths during that time. No one said perimenopause. I didn't think it was perimenopause. I even read the chapter of a book specifically on menopause at 45 to prepare myself. But I always thought it was a far off thing, to me, it was just oh, someday I'll go through that. So when I was 47, I missed a period or maybe 2. And then that's really hard to argue with, right? So there was some denial in that space for me, some denial because I thought menopause was about being old. And I hadn't ever skipped a period. My periods they'd changed. So I started thinking before I lost my job, I wanted to leave traditional media, but I couldn't sort of envision it. So I got the old hoof and that was good. And then I started freelancing and then I just started thinking, I want to launch this on the side. And I didn't know how to do it, maybe a newsletter. Because when I realized I was in perimenopause, I just couldn't find any information or people who were sort of speaking my language, the menopause, they all seem like ladies, old ladies to me. And that sounds, but they seem sweet, but they just weren't me.
Old lady sweet.
See myself. It's
yeah.
I see myself as 30.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
but I am that old lady. It's crazy. So I was like, there's not really, and plus journalism wise, I'm just a content crazy. So I like to cast a huge net and cover stuff and then keep covering it. And I just thought like I could, there's no one doing this in this space. And then I started to research and I realized it was gonna blow open. Like I could just
Yeah.
sort of see, because I was a trends writer before in Canada. So that's sort of one of my skills is like putting things together. So long story short, I got involved with another project and I still do that. But then in the pandemic, I was like, I got to do this now. Like I lost a couple of freelancing gigs and I had some time and I thought if I don't do this now, like I'm never going to do it. So I just launched with a newsletter and then I've been working like a maniac ever since.
And it's the online magazine, isn't it? Hotflashinc. It's really cool. I obviously just found it
Yeah.
on Instagram and I was like that, I need to try and get a hold of this woman because I work with clients kind of entering perimenopause and nobody really knows what's going on because symptoms are so, like you've just said, your eyelashes fell out. Like the symptoms are
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. So I think it's
Yeah.
very hard for people to pinpoint what's actually going on in their body, which is so sad. We've never actually been taught. It's
100%.
actually so like terrible for women just to be left to sort of figure it out. You're researching at 12 different doctors. Do you know what I mean? Like, what
Oh,
is
and
that
everyone
about?
says a different thing.
Yeah.
This is the craziest thing about having a podcast is that, and I just interviewed the girls from Hot Flashes and Cool Topics. They've had the podcast since 2019. And I said, when you interview doctors, are you kind of shocked at what they don't know? And they said, yes. Like sometimes they're talking and I'm like, oh my God, they don't know the difference between progesterone and progestin.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like it's really weird when you
No,
start spotting the gaps in people, but that just goes to
100%.
show how little. Yeah.
Yeah. How little
Yeah.
it's
There's a
so
lot of gaps.
unjust for women, isn't it? So in terms of symptoms, you have
Mm.
you had brain fog.
What started? So what started at 40, I mean, I'm 52, almost 53 in the middle of an epic perimenopause. Like I haven't had my period for 6 months. So I'm calling it my second like menomester and I'm really hoping it's done,
Do you think it's done?
but you never know.
You don't know
I
because it
feel
could
it is.
just you could just be on month 11, have a period, and then you're like, oh
Yeah.
well, there it's back. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So I'm not counting my chickens, but so I reckon around 41, I started to have a lot of really weird stuff happen. And it's very hard to unpack from just being the age of 41 and all the things that come along with that. And I think there's a definite crossover to like the emotional stuff you've experienced and the trauma in your life and um, a lid that's on that's sort of like a boiling pot. That's just like maybe the lid isn't containing it, but then the hormones kick in. So as best I can remember, around 41, 40, I started having like really bad anxiety. And I just remember some episodes with really bad anxiety where I was just like, ugh. Like I remember buying this popcorn and being in a taxi here in Abu Dhabi and just eating it to be like calm because the
wow,
chewing was just like calming me down and just like, ugh. And I remember, I started having nightmares around this time that I would wake up in the middle of the night, like, like sit up in bed. Sometimes I would be already looking at my bedside table. The nightmare was that I was supposed to be taking a pill to stay alive, but I had forgotten to take it for a couple days. Sort of like when you're on the birth control pill, when you're like, oh
yeah,
shoot, if I take it was like that. It was almost every night for like a year. I developed a fear of flying like out of nowhere. I fly all the time here in Abu Dhabi. I was the kind of person who would like not even a thought. And I had to start drinking like Jack Daniels to get on the plane. And sleep issues. And then I developed adrenal exhaustion because I didn't alter my lifestyle. Because what happens is you hit this time and you do what you've always done, right? Like the stuff that you've always done to get yourself out of some sort of psychological hole, it doesn't work anymore. So mine always was over exercising, over planning, over scheduling. So I'd be like, my brain is wrecked. Okay, I've got to, well, first of all, I would drink a lot on the weekend because the anxiety would just be too much. And sometimes I would drink too much during the week, right? If I was at an event, because it just feels so good when you're like this with anxiety.
to take the
It
edge
doesn't
off.
feel good the next day, but
Yeah,
it just feels great that first or second
yeah,
drink. And at that point, I hadn't put that all together yet. How that's just longer term, not good, but short term
yeah.
sometimes. when you're like this. Um, and
Anne Marie, did you have
yeah,
anxiety before you hit perimenopause? Did you have it in childhood and then were able to like deal with it as a sort of like in your 20s, 30s, and then did it come back on in
it's very hard to
perimenopause?
remember. Yeah, I had anxiety. Yeah, I was on the birth control pill until 28, and it's very hard for me to remember my mental state then.
Yeah.
But as I do remember going off the birth control pill, and that is when anxiety started. But around that time, my mom died. I started my journalism career, which is crazy stressful. It's just like, only in hindsight can I see what I was under. And then I had two long-term relationships that ended. So I was single and everyone was getting married. So it's very difficult for me to unpack all that. But
Uh-huh.
yes, from then on, I always sort of had shadow, like depression, anxiety, but I never helped myself because I used to like party and then I would work out really hard.
So
So
you were
I
just
was using my
distracting.
old techniques. Yeah, I would use my old techniques to try to wrestle this new, much crazier uh, anxiety, like definitely worse, like panic attacks a couple of times. So I would create this crazy workout schedule. Like I would go spinning and then race over to Bikram yoga, like
Yeah.
several nights a week. Then I would be, binge drinking on the weekend and then trying to fix it all again and restrictive eating and just trying to muscle this. And within that, my period changed. People never talk about this, but in the early stage of menopause, for me, period was regular always my whole life, but it changed within the period. And it's not something you kind of like, I was kind of like in the back of my mind, oh, yeah, like the fourth day is really heavy. And the fourth day, I'm dying of cramps, not the first
Okay.
day as it
Right.
used to be. Yeah,
That's
but it's still the same
interesting.
length, still regular. Yeah.
So
And I've
still
never heard
happening.
anyone talk about this.
Yeah, I've not either actually, but the changes within your actual the period itself is
Yes, within.
huge.
Like it was so. Yeah. And you just, I don't know, you're busy, you're not thinking about it. You're
Yeah.
not, you're just not you're like, huh. But that was a significant change because I think a lot of women have it strong the first or second days, and that's when the
Yeah.
cramps are, and then it lightens up and goes. And this was much different. And I started to realize, oh, you're going to have it. Like, don't make a plan or whatever. Like, you're going to have and tampons started to really bug me at that time. I don't know, too much information. They just started to irritate me. Like I was just like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to wear. And then I got like those diva cup and the underwear and all that stuff. Those were the things I can remember. Um, and then weird feelings like tingling on my head and um, itching, and sometimes just this very strange sensations would come over me when I would be sitting at my desk, and I think, am I having an aneurysm? Like, at least there's people around me if I fall, like
Oh
just weird
fuck's
stuff.
sake. Anne Marie,
And this,
man.
I'm making this sound terrible. I know I'm making this sound terrible. But it's like, I'm telling you all at once. And
Yeah,
this
we
was
want the
spread out
bad
over
shit.
like
Just give us it all in the one go, like, you know?
time. In that time I had a great time. I had
Yeah.
so much fun. I had boyfriends. I had fun. Like it's fine. It's just, I'm telling you all, together.
Yeah.
And really, right now, it's so clear to me that I would have like some progesterone would have really sorted me out. Like
Yes.
everything I've learned now, some progesterone is exactly the problems I was having.
100%, because in the UK we're all like estrogen, like let's get estrogen, but I'm like,
Yes.
whoa, you actually need progesterone. Your estrogen's fucking crazy right now. It's progesterone that
Yeah.
you need to like bring that down. So like, Anne Marie, what progesterone? Because you read loads of stuff and like progesterone, INE, is like
Yeah.
terrible. It's not the same as your body. You shouldn't take it.
Yeah.
It's got side effects like
Yeah.
depression. But then it's like, well, what progesterone then? Is there a progesterone that you can take that's not bad? Because obviously you've got things like the birth control pill. I'm very skeptical about birth control and
Yeah.
things that are going into your body that shouldn't really be there. So when it comes to like HRT, if I'm really fucking suffering, Anne Marie, like I
Yeah.
want to do it naturally, but see if it's like limiting my life and I'm like having a terrible time,
Yeah.
I will look for something like a hormone
Yeah.
replacement. But it's a fucking minefield. Like it's, and then we've got Davina
Oh,
McCall.
is it ever?
Do you know
Yes.
Davina McCall?
Yes.
So we've got her,
Yes.
like she's shouting about HRT everywhere and like all this stuff we should be getting, but it's still very confusing for everyone
You've
here.
got a lot of people shouting. You've got a lot of people shouting
Yeah.
about HRT. There's a
Yes.
lot of, this is a minefield. This is, okay. first of all, I'm going to be skeptical about this because someone has to be.
Yes.
And there is a group. So it's most vocal in the UK. There are an insane amount of people. I call them HRT enthusiasts. Like, it's HRT.
Oh, they
You can't
want
say
it.
a word against
It's like
HRT.
catnip.
You can't write about anything. Yeah, it's like, and coaching women to like say they have symptoms that they don't have so they can get testosterone. It's really reached a crazy fever pitch. And I'm
Yes.
part of a group now called Meno Clarity. We formed it, like, concerned women. I'm not even in the UK,
I
but
follow
I've had
it.
a couple of calls. There's doctors in that, there's front facing doctors that you know about, and there's other doctors that are prominent that just they can't be, because of their professional designations and stuff.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people in the UK concerned about this all HRT all the time, throw caution to the wind. It's safe. The claims of longevity, the claims of disease prevention that are overstated. So all that I'm cautious about. And that has somehow become controversial, which I find strange. Like,
It's
somehow it's
very
become
controversial.
controversial to say, hey, whoa, like, let's be careful. There are risks.
Yeah.
So I do come at it with that skepticism, but that's my journalism background. And I just did like a huge thing on my newsletter that was like 33 things I think about HRT. And I've been very scared to actually say what I think. I have not gone the HRT route yet because I have other health problems and I've been trying to iron them out. And two doctors haven't given it to me. I asked about it at 47, and I had a French gynecologist, and she said, no, I want you to go through menopause. And I don't like what they have available here in the UAE. And then I was feeling really crappy recently. I asked my doctor, who's from India, the one I have now, and she didn't want to give it to me either. And that's heresy in the UK, right? Like, get a new doctor. But it was really hard
Yes.
to find those doctors.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded. I just think it's important to say what I've got going on, because I'm not against it. And I actually believe that maybe in 10 or 20 years, there will be prevention beyond, maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
Because I had a menopause shift summit with a partner, and a lot of the integrative people were talking all about it as a preventative for all sorts of things. But it's not that simple. And first of all, two of the leading people in the world that I really respect that are part of this mental clarity are Lara Bryden, a naturopathic doctor in New Zealand who's Canadian, and Jerry
I
Lynn
love her.
Pryor, who's an American endocrinologist. Yeah. And they're like forward thinking on progesterone, as is the integrative functional world. They
Yes.
are much forward thinking. For some reason, this conversation has become obsessed with estrogen
Yes.
and estrogen only. So when you interview a doctor, most doctors, when I ask them about progesterone, it's like,
I know.
it's
It's
weird, right?
it's
So
baffling because I'm like, but we're low in progesterone. Progesterone is
yeah,
that's the anxiety, that's the bad sleeping, like. So what happened?
yes.
Where did that go wrong? Is it we weren't actually taught how to take care of ourselves, and now as an end result, it's like our hormones are a shambles, and we need all this hormone replacement to sort of feel level. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
Lara Bryden, like, because this is a natural transition. We were meant to go
This is
through it. And
natural,
anyone who
yeah. Like
says,
the
yeah,
menopause is
yeah,
natural, you know.
yeah, no
So
one, it's common to hear, oh, we're going through this now because we didn't used to live long enough to go through menopause. But that's absolute nonsense, because throughout
that's
history,
untrue as well. Yeah.
it's absolutely untrue. These are things that you hear very respected people repeating. I hear
Yeah.
journalists repeating. Like, I've seen it on the front page of the Telegraph. Like, I've seen it over. It makes me mental, because it's like Aristotle talked about menopause. Like, someone just said the other day, we only started going through it 100 years ago. Someone quite high profile.
No.
And I'm like, it was named 200 years ago. Like, it
200
got
years
its
ago,
name.
yeah. Aha.
So,
Yeah.
so none of this is making any sense. So it is a natural transition. The theory is that there's like an evolutionary mismatch, right? All the things that are making everything harder and leading to autoimmune disorders and leading to all anxiety, pick one, I don't know, like everything from stress to toxins to air pollution to trauma to EMFs. Like, if you want it to be crazy, like,
Uh-huh.
who would pick, like, we
Yeah.
just have an array of stuff that our mothers didn't even have. So that theory to me seems quite plausible. And that's why I love to see people sort of setting themselves up younger and not hitting,
Yes.
because I think a lot of women hit menopause, hit perimenopause in a really like sort of weakened and strange state, which is, I would say, is what happened to me. You really used to burning myself out, just push myself so hard, had a lot of stuff to work through, like a lot of emotional stuff. And then we know adverse childhood experiences, which is, forms of trauma. People who have had those have worse experiences of menopause. Socioeconomic stressors, racial factors all contribute. And just back to the hormone therapy question, because I'm so obsessed with this estrogen obsession. And people think maybe it's just because they just discovered estrogen first. Perhaps that might
I
be
don't,
it. I don't know.
but it's like treated
I don't
like
know.
I've seen it quite a lot, and especially in the new group that you're in, how it's not like a magnesium deficiency, the menopause. It's not
Yeah.
like a disease that this is a
Yeah.
natural process. And I think that,
Does it make
not,
sense?
it doesn't make sense for it to be so obsessive about the estrogen side. I mean, lots of my female
No.
clients, 43, and they're on an estrogen patch, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you know it's estrogen that you're low in? Is it not progesterone? Do you
Yeah.
have progesterone in that patch? But that seems to be the missing hormone. Nobody knows like what you're talking about, progesterone. Like the most important
Right?
hormone you need right now to cool down your
Yes.
estrogen.
This is
It's
why I love you. You totally got this. It's just what I can't just explain it to you. It makes complete common sense to me. But yet, when I share information about progesterone, or even Dr. Pryor, I'll get comments. I mean, I had two coaches say to me, sorry, because the North American Menopause Society and other menopause societies recommend progesterone only for perimenopause. And Dr. Pryor believes that you should only use probably progesterone through perimenopause and add estrogen in after if you need it.
yeah,
But I'll get comments like, "I'm sorry, that doesn't work unless if the estrogen is low." And it's like, I don't. Someone has said, despite what NAM says and despite what Jerry Lynn Pryor says, that's not true. I don't know what to
yeah,
say to that. I'm not a
it's wrong.
doctor, but
Ah,
but also until recently, I was befuddled by the fact that no one really pays attention to testosterone, which is our most abundant
yeah,
hormone, because they're not compared in the same measurements when you look at it online. But when you compare apples to apples in the measurements, it's testosterone, you know. But but to your question about progesterone, progestin, one of the things I think, and you're not seeing this everywhere, and even the research doesn't delineate between progesterone and progestin. Sometimes they'll just call it progesterone. But
ah,
I can't get in the studies to see. Someone just shared something today about cardiac risk, and they said progesterone, and I tweeted the guy to say, is that progesterone or progestin? Because I
yep,
can't be sure just because it says progesterone. That's how unimportant it is.
ah,
But the risk signals to me um, seem to be with progestin. I wouldn't take progestin, and the experts tell me that um, okay, the experts tell me that all progestin has all of the risk factors and side effects and none of the benefits. So
well, ah,
they give you, like, if you take estrogen, you need progesterone or progestin to offset it in a certain dose
yes,
to prevent thickening of your uterine lining and cancer, because estrogen makes things grow.
yes,
But the difference is why you wouldn't just get progesterone and insist on it is, a lot of people don't know. But to me, I would just insist on progesterone, because then I would have all the benefits of the sleep. My girlfriend's 41, started having problems sleeping. She went on 200 oral micronized progesterone, and the first night she slept, she said it was like
see,
stunning, the
yeah.
change, right?
Uh-huh.
So I
Even
don't know.
women that are ovulating, like kind of my age,
Yeah.
and you should have good ovulation. If your progesterone is low, well, you get symptoms of low progesterone, like you get the anxiety and you get all the kind of not sleeping and stuff like that. So I just don't know where
Yeah.
it just disappears in like perimenopause. You're like, this? Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's
I
just
don't
it's
know,
a
but I love
mad
how
culture.
savvy. You're so savvy about, because I think this whole transition is like a macro, is that the right way of saying it, of your menstrual cycle in a way.
Yes. It's
There's a
seasons,
lot
isn't
of
it?
mirroring. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
your internal season. So for
Yeah.
perimenopause is like autumn, unpredictable
Yeah.
weather. Some days it's nice and bright, you feel good. Some days you want to just sit in the
Yeah.
house. And that kind of is the perimenopause, isn't it? You're up and down,
Yeah.
basically second
Yeah.
puberty, as it's described,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so you're a
Yeah.
wee bit like, "Meh," but we're not allowed the sort of space or the knowledge for some reason to
Yeah.
know this stuff, and it would make it a lot easier to transition.
Yeah.
I worry about getting to the age of when I'm going through perimenopause and not having any sort of way to get progesterone or know if I should be taking testosterone, and just feeling a bit lost in that sort of like hormone replacement sort of whirlwind. Do you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
it
But
feels like,
so much. You know so much already. You're going to be fine. And there'll be so much more information. The problem is there's all this, like estrogen everyone's obsessed with estrogen. And a lot of people think this stems back to like the 50s and 60s when this guy wrote a book called Feminine Forever, all about estrogen and how it was like this youth elixir and it's your skin and your hair and everything. And it turned out that his name escapes me, but it turns out that um, his work was funded by a pharmaceutical company. And it's like this
shock horror.
patriarchal, yeah, there's this sort of like patriarchal
Yes.
overtone to the whole thing about estrogen because, just like, and I read a really great book that came out in 2013 called Sweetening the Pill. Holly Grigg-Spall wrote it, and she's going to come on my podcast. And she'd be great. You'd love to talk to her. But this is getting into controversial stuff because the pill and criticizing it is controversial. But, just the way we were encouraged to go on the birth control pill because it would sort of regulate us out, right? Like, it evens out your month. You can be sort of more like a man. I feel there's those tones, very similar tones in the HRT discussion. Like if you just stay
Yes.
on HRT, you can just like continue. You don't have to have any of this stuff. I'm not saying you should suffer ever. Like when I get this health stuff sorted out, I'm going to go on HRT because I'm curious. But the pressure that's coming from other women and the
Yes.
silencing of debate and discussion with cries of medical gaslighting, if you ask any questions, or exert, suggest any caution, which happened just recently. There was an article in the Daily Mail it was very well balanced, tons of great professionals, and that article is just ripped apart. And unfortunately, the Daily Mail is doing some of, I think, the most responsible reporting on this because they're contrarian, right? So, when there's a narrative, it's dangerous, but the British papers there's really a narrative. There's not much, not much balance in this discussion, and that
No.
hurts people for information.
But it is the same for the pill as well. Like I think people like the birth control
Yes.
pill. For over here, it's still promoted to like 13-year-olds that periods are crazy, so they go to the doctor and they get given the pill, and you're like, and it's the same kind of HRT I find is the new thyroxine. I don't know if you've ever, but because I train women, I used to get all the time when they couldn't lose weight or whatever, they'd be like, it's my thyroid. It definitely is my thyroid. So then there'd be this big
Right.
push. They're dying for thyroxine. The disappointment when
Yeah.
they got their bloods back and they're fine. I'm like, great, you're healthy. They were raging. And then it's HRTs, like the new fix. Like as soon as I get HRT, I'm going to be thin. My orgasms are going to be amazing.
Really?
And I'm like, it's not the quick fix that you think it might be. There's no guarantees
No.
that it's going to take away any
No.
of those symptoms that you've got.
Well, some of the people, it seems to. Some people rave, and women will write to me. I'm always curious, and they'll say it's life changing. It changed my life. Yeah. But then there's just as many women who don't take it, and there's a lot of women who take it. And I see a woman on Twitter for literally the whole time I've been doing this newsletter, and I don't know, she's been tweaking and going back, and like it doesn't seem to be going very well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think you get on a medication and you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I've got to get a different dose and another dose. It's like comical to me, not her suffering. Just at this point, I'm like,
Yes.
again with you in this HRT, like
Good
it's not
God.
working.
It's a saga now. It's a saga now.
But
So
yeah, it helps. It helps a lot of people. But I personally think, me, Amory McQueen, not a doctor, just
yes,
for me, I would go back in time and take progesterone. And
Okay.
then if I needed it, if I felt, which I still might, if I felt like I needed estrogen, I would layer in some estrogen, and maybe I would take some testosterone. And I may still do all these things. I do have a thyroid problem, and I have sort of long-standing gut issues. So I'm working with a doctor now and working all that up. And she doesn't want me to go on hormone therapy because I have a fatty liver because of
Uh-huh.
these long-standing problems, not the way I eat or anything. And she doesn't want me going on it, but she's like, your liver's not working. You could have estrogen trapped in your liver. We need to make
Yeah.
sure, right? And so all these things all these variables make the certainty with which people speak about it make me very uncomfortable. And I never thought my position, which is just moderate, would become a controversial position. I
Yeah.
find that scary.
I think so
You know?
too. And like you say, your back's against the wall. You can't really talk about it. You can't say, I think you should try and
Yes.
support your body with, real food. And
Yeah.
do you do any exercise? Oh, you smoke as well. Well, maybe
Uh,
try all these
yeah.
things and then,
Yes.
maybe go HRT. Like what you said
Yes.
kind of resonates with me, and the fact that you said that you had this sort of strict exercise regime, maybe a bit of a type A personality, would you say that you
Oh,
are, Anne
100%.
Marie?
100%.
I'm getting
Yeah.
those vibes. So, like, I can see how you would burn out, but put
Yeah.
on the kind of hamster wheel of life, right? Because we're all working to like a 24-hour clock. We're all in guy time, like a man's
Yeah.
world typically is.
Yep.
So, we never got told, at this time of the month, you need to pull back. And Mary, you see your strict exercise regime, you need to stop that at this time of the month. The way you're working is too fast. So do you
Yeah.
think that maybe if you had have like cooled your system down a bit, that you wouldn't, because obviously your ovaries stop producing estrogen, but your adrenal glands do. And
Yeah.
so they support your
Yeah.
body, but you burnt yours
Yeah.
out just by like
Yes.
living the modern life. Do you know what I mean? Do you think that life would have been
Yes.
different for you if you hadn't burnt yourself out so much?
Well, yes, because I went to a naturopath when those eyelashes, because you can't deny when your eyelashes fall out. My God, I
No,
looked
that's like
awful.
intense.
Yeah, and that's your body just knocking and saying, like screaming at you actually, and saying the
Yeah.
next thing I do is going to be, you have to. That's the kind of person I am, right? That's the kind of attention that I needed, and the same thing has happened with my thyroid because sometimes you don't learn all your lessons. But once she balanced everything out, this naturopath yelled at me and she said, "When you tell me about your life, I hear work. I don't hear joy. I don't hear anything." And she scared the bejesus because she said, "If you don't change this, you're going to get an autoimmune disorder. You're going to get cancer." And
Yeah.
you need to change your ways. And so I did. I really did. And I chilled out on the exercise, and I had it. It was much, 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 much better. For quite a few years, it was much better. And then it's been, I'd say, more like a sort of normal situation until my gut issues. Like I've always had gut problems, and it's sort of just catching up with me. They think I might have had Crohn's when I was younger. So that, but also I launched Hot Flash and started grinding myself into the ground. Like we have these lessons that we need to learn, and sometimes they just come back and come back.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is the stuff that comes out in your 40s, um, childhood stuff, stuff you haven't dealt with. I went to therapy and worked out some things. I figured out relationship stuff. That stuff's calling to you. And if you haven't learned how to process your emotions, like I hadn't, I had a very delayed, I would disconnect, or almost like, yeah, I didn't feel things the way I should have, because I developed, as a child, I developed coping mechanisms. And so that's been a lot of work, and that's, I think, essential. And that's what also bothers me about the HRT will fix it conversation, because I
Yeah.
don't think HRT will fix that stuff. I think you need to do that work. And I think you're being called, like I call it a hero's journey. You're being called to change. And like you have to change almost everything. And if you're in a lot of my friends are in relationships 20 years, stuff hasn't been said. HRT is not going to fix that stuff. If like all the stuff that you need to fix before you go into the other part of your life, it's everything. And that's really
That's
daunting.
It's daunting, but it's actually quite amazing how your body keeps the score. Have you read that or like came
Yes.
across that book?
Yes.
And it
I
is
just bought
so
that book. I
true.
just bought it.
Have
Yeah.
you?
It's
So the body
crazy. Yeah, I just bought
Keeps
it.
the
Someone
score.
just said to just buy it. Yeah. Yep.
Have you started
Yeah.
reading it?
Yeah, I just started. And I mean, I've known all this, but someone said when they listen to my podcast, you should read that book because I've
Yeah.
known this, like, and it's like A, that woman told me I would get an autoimmune disorder, and I did. And B, you think you're done, but you're never done. Like the work on yourself and the stuff. So yeah, I just literally got it on my iPad and started reading it.
That's cool. But I'm
It's
interested in the
magical.
trauma stuff. Did it just start coming up like in ways of where you just start thinking about this trauma that you had in your past that you had forgotten about, and then all of a sudden you are in perimenopause? Like, how did the trauma
It's
stuff
weird. Well,
manifest?
I guess I don't know because how do you subtract the progesterone going and the estrogen going up and down, and then what's happening to you psychologically? I don't know. Um, but I had a long-standing belief that was formed when I was a kid because of stuff with my parents, and I was a chubby kid, so I got teased, and all that went inside me, and I thought there was something wrong with me. Like, and I internalized a super critical voice that was in my life. And I remember when I was just before I moved over here, I was talking to my girlfriend. She's 10 years younger than me. We were going on a ski weekend and we're driving the car and it's dark. And I guess I was just kind of saying this stuff about, relationships and why I don't have one. And I remember it was really quiet. And then she said, "How long have you been like this?" And I
You're like,
thought, oh, that's not normal, actually.
yeah,
Like she's starting
like
to
what?
say that that's not really. So I didn't know that I had this, right? So when all this stuff, what I'm kind of grateful I didn't know about perimenopause because it forced me to address each thing. And I ended up going to therapy when I lost my eyelashes. Around that time, my relationship, I had a serious relationship. It was cracking up, and my brother's wife was diagnosed with a really serious problem. It was just too much. So I ended up getting an online therapist, and she ended up explaining to me, your brain is this way, your anxiety is rooted in the way your amygdala was formed when you were young. And so I ended up working through like a lot with her. But then I still had a lot to work through with relationships. Me personally, I've never gotten married or had kids. And so I've worked through a lot like with relationships in the last couple of years too. And it's not like, I mean, you don't have to be chained to a radiator. I didn't have a terrible childhood. My parents took great care of me, but there were issues there.
Yeah.
And we come from a different time in the 70s, like in so many ways. Like even paying attention to your menstrual cycle, like we didn't do that. Like
No.
all my information came from women's magazines, and it was like you keep hitting it hard, and you need to lose weight, and you need to eat less, and you need to be on the stairmaster. It took me so
Oh,
long to lift weights, like all that stuff.
oh, I'm still like convincing women to lift weights and stop doing the cardio at 5:30 in the morning stuff, like, and eating 800
Yes.
calories a day. I'm still retraining
I mean,
people's brains from that. It's like, wow, it's like, what year is it now? 2023. But it's trying to say you're going to have an issue if you keep pushing
yeah,
yourself like that, isn't it?
the
It's just
stairmaster.
pending. Is that a
It's a
Stairmaster, man?
stairmaster. That
Who?
stupid stairmaster. I would 90 minutes. I would do that sometimes. That
Fucking
stupid
hell.
stairmaster. Jesus, can you
That's
imagine?
a
What a
shit
horrible,
time. I
what
bet
a
you worked at the
horrible.
same time, didn't you? I bet you were on that Stairmaster and you were doing work at the same time. That's what you'd have been doing, isn't it?
No, no, listen to this. This
How
is the
many?
best. I was so rigid that I loved reading magazines, which were so bad for me because it was just a bunch of like girls who were creating content that knew no more than me. But that was the only time I would let myself read magazines. I wasn't allowed to read them like sitting, relaxing on my
Because you weren't
apartment.
being
I
productive.
was like, right. So I was allowed, like, just even telling you that now I want to cry because that's horrible. Like, I had
Yeah,
to over 90 minutes so I could read the magazine.
yeah. Isn't that shit?
Like, come on.
Well, it's
Come
fucking
on.
terrible, isn't it?
That's terrible. Yeah.
Why we
That's
just
just
so
terrible.
unkind, aren't we, to ourselves? Just so unkind, man.
Yeah.
Imagine you said that to
Yeah.
somebody, like, one of your friends. You can only ever read a magazine if you're going up the stairs at the same time. You'd be like, what? Why? That's a shit time. I think I'll just leave it, Like,
Like,
fuck's
I
sake.
don't want to read a magazine.
Isn't
Excuse
it?
me. That is hilarious. Yeah, I didn't even think till this minute about how insane it was. Like
Yeah,
I thought about it a little bit, but yeah, I'm fully getting
it's
it now.
yeah. Now it's said it objectively to you. You know, it's crazy, isn't it? But we're
Oh
all.
my
It's
god.
just and then adrenal burnout when you're like 43, like that.
Yeah,
Maybe you know.
that's no wonder. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's
woman's health. No,
fact.
not woman's health. Like shape cover on the fridge, the
Yeah.
Shape magazine cover, just so I wouldn't eat the food in the
So you wouldn't
fridge.
eat. Yeah,
Um,
that's what that
yeah,
was a
just
trick that was
yeah,
said. You
like I
know,
could
listen.
possibly look like
Uh
that, like ever.
like oh no, I won't go in for that little bit of cheese now because that shape, that's me.
Yeah,
No, I know it's
because
that's
I
terrible
can
though.
look like that if I
Uh
wouldn't eat that. Yeah, I'll definitely be able to look like that girl. I mean, I have a curvy body, like I'm an hourglass shape. I wouldn't even look like that if I tried.
it's just horrible, isn't
It's
it?
crazy.
It's
Yeah.
horrible. So I just wanted
I
to.
wish I had you as a trainer. I really wish I had you as a trainer. That would have
I
changed
can be
everything.
quite rough as well, to be honest. I can be quite rough. My mum's half German, so it's all very much, military exercise with me. I'm not for the snowflakes,
Okay.
you know. Oh, you'd have loved me actually, Anne Marie. I'd have punished you. So what I
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to
yeah. I would
touch
have been like,
on,
you're the best trainer ever.
yeah. What I wanted to ask you about was what I get asked a lot, and that's things to do with sex drive when you're in the
Yeah.
perimenopause. What happens, Emily?
Okay.
Is it just shit, not arsed with it anymore? Are you in a relationship now? Sorry.
I'm in a relationship now, but okay. I've never had a problem with my sex drive, except in the
Okay.
relationship that I left back then. But that relationship had deep problems that affected my attraction, right? Like,
Yes.
and that can happen. So this fellow was a lovely fellow, but he had some problems, including a drinking problem. So I've just had a really hard time with that, and that's what ended our relationship. But I've never had a problem. But I had a boyfriend for 2 years. My libido's never been a problem. But as I hear more and more about it, it's like I'm single. So I don't know, right? If I was in a long term relationship, would it? I don't know. I'm single. I started dating like crazy 3 years ago. I'm dating like younger guys because like the men my age are kind of boring. The person I'm dating is really young now. And it's how young?
How
How am I going
young?
to not have a good libido? You know what I mean? Like
You have no
that has
choice.
not been a, yeah. Like
Fucking
no, that
hell.
is not a problem for me. That's not a problem for me. I've been blessed in that department.
That is
Um,
lucky then, because
yeah,
I
but
do get a lot of this chat and they think the HRT is going to work, but I'm like, testosterone, it probably is. That's your kind of sex drivey hormone
yeah,
as well, isn't it?
yep.
Dry vagina. This is a huge
Okay.
topic that I get asked about.
So vagina stuff. Yeah, vagina
Yeah.
stuff. And I would have told you, yeah, I don't really have that. But like remember I told you about the tampons started to bug me. It started to just be irritating. You know that feeling of when a tampon's in wrong? It would sort of feel like that. But basically now I know that was probably thinning skin and the tampon was irritating it because this tampon's like abrasive when you think about it, right? Like it's kind
It's
of gross.
fucking horrible.
So I just solved that by going with the flow. More recently, I've noticed I haven't had kids, so I haven't had any of the incontinence issues, but I noticed I have a tiny bit, like enough that I'm going to go to a pelvic floor specialist and I'm going to go mostly when I wake up in the morning, like so small, but I don't like it. And I do trampoline workouts and I can feel a couple of years ago, I just started to feel like my pelvic floor was moving a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
not so that. And then, um, I can tend to just be, this is personal, but I can tend to be on the cusp of bacterial vaginosis. It's like dogs me, like that's been a
Yes.
problem for the last year. I could just, and that is a very common thing when the hormones are all over the place and blood sugar's all over the place, which is another thing I'm experiencing. And that is another thing that can happen. And the last thing I would say, which sounds like a lot now, and I wouldn't even say I complain a lot, is, and I don't want people to be depressed about this, but no one talks about like muted orgasms that just aren't as good as they used to be. And that I have experienced, and that makes me sad. But there are multiple things you can do that I'm going to do and try. Testosterone, yes,
What
but
else? So
also
muted
sound therapy.
orgasm, muted
Muted.
orgasm, like as in you're just
Yeah.
not just getting that climax, or is it
It's
like,
not, when it's just like boom, like just the
well,
boom.
that's that us done? Is it kind of like that? That's shit. I
No,
mean,
it's like, oh, like you're still satisfied. It's just sometimes they're just kind of like, it just kind of went like it didn't go off. It
and
doesn't,
that's the
it's not
thing.
giving the same way. I've talked about this with someone, Jessica Julie Bodonsky, who's awesome. She's a NAM certified practitioner in New York City. She went on estrogen. She said that's really helped. So that's in the back of my mind. Testosterone. I've talked to a nurse practitioner in Nashville, Brooke Fott. She prescribes testosterone along with estrogen to actually rub on the
Is it the
area. She says
gel or
that
is it?
helps.
Oh, okay. So the gel.
So she tells women put the testosterone right on, like rub it on your clitoris, rub it on your whatever.
Wow.
And she said that helps. But I talked to another testosterone expert who just thought that was, she doesn't do that. But she says she does pellets, which everyone says are very scary, and gel. And she says that helps the orgasms. I'm more interested in some of the other things I've heard about. I'm going to interview someone soon about radio frequency and sound, like radio frequency and sound therapy. It's like a
Therapy.
sound,
What do you mean? You sit with
yeah,
your
and
legs
then
open and the Tibetan bowl
no,
fucking for
it's like
you?
it's like a in like a, what do you call it? Like if you got an internal vaginal scan,
Yeah.
that sort of like they'll insert it and there's like a radio frequency that comes and it's very healing. And there's a doctor in Dubai that does it. She said 3-4
Great.
sessions and it helps with your sexual pleasure and it can help with your any incontinence issues. I interviewed at a V Spot, which is like a salon in, not a salon, but you know what I mean, like a Medi Spa in New York City. And I talked to a doctor there, Monica Grover. She says they use lasers. She said lasers help everything, vaginal dryness, the incontinence. And she said there's also like a placebo effect to it too. And it helps the sexual pleasure. She said there's a bit of a placebo effect as well because you're like taking care and doing something. And
Yeah.
so I'm not really, this isn't that big of a deal, but you know, sex is huge and orgasms are one of our true pleasures in life. So it's important to me to get this. Like, I am going to take care of it. And I interviewed a girl on TikTok who was doing it, and she said she could definitely notice a difference. So I think there's other things, and I'm much more like a permanent solution kind of person, or as permanent as I can get.
Yeah, I
Like I
would like
got my
that too.
bikini line lasered off a long time ago. I got
Yeah.
electrolysis on my eyebrows because I can't see them and I don't want to walk around with stubble.
Yes.
Like I'd rather pay
You
the
got
money
your
up
beard
front, you
done.
know, and not have to.
Ah, yeah.
Putting a
Yeah,
bunch
yeah,
of
no,
estrogen
I'm
up my
with you.
vagina every night, it's not exciting to me.
You don't
Like
want that.
I that
You
must be
could make it
heresy to
you
do that.
could make it exciting. I mean, that could be part of your getting your new young man
Yeah.
involved. Like, I'm about to rub estrogen
Yeah.
down there. Would you like to
Yeah.
would you like to help me?
Oh,
You know?
I don't.
Fuck's sake,
He
man.
would do it. He would definitely
Yeah.
do it, but I don't think, I don't know, you know, but that seems almost inappropriate now to say, or some people will say it's irresponsible. And all the doctors say, if you go on vaginal estrogen, you have to be on vaginal estrogen for life. Well, that's just not like appealing to me. If there's an apocalypse, I don't want to be like, I gotta break into a pharmacy and get my
Well,
vaginal
there's an
estrogen.
estrogen, there's a HRT shortage over here in the UK. So now
Yes.
people are
This is
like
another,
freaking out. You know what I mean? And even these
yeah.
estrogen patches, I'll be training someday and I'm like, is that your estrogen patch on the floor? Like, what the fuck? Who designed that shit? It's shit. Isn't it? Like, fucking hell. Down your trouser leg. Like, oh, there it is there.
Oh
But
my
yeah, we've
God.
got an HRT shortage here. So now people are like, holy
Yes.
shit, what's going to happen to my life if I don't get this? You know?
That to me is such stress. And I will say that's another
Such
reason
stress.
why I have not pushed the HRT issue here beyond asking a doctor and having them say no, because I could go find someone and pay for it out of pocket. But supply chain is a big issue in the UAE, and I see women complaining about the same thing. And I do not need that stress like
Nah,
in my life
no.
with a dwindling prescription and no way to fill it. And I hear women and it's so stressful. It's so stressful. I just wouldn't go on something if I didn't know I could get it.
No,
But
that's so
also,
stressful.
yeah.
It's like we've got a shop over here called Aldi. I don't know if you've got it in Dubai, but you can buy something once from it and then you go back and it's not fucking there. It's just like one-off buys. Do you know what I mean? I find that dead stressful. I can't go in that shop. So
Me too.
HRT, do you
It's
know what I
like,
mean? Like,
no, it's like that a lot here, actually. Like, you'll find something and you think you know where it is. Like, I was just at our pharmacy next door and they have MCT oil. And I was like, should I stock up? And
yeah,
I don't
I'll
even
bulk
need
buy
it,
this.
but they have a really good kind. Yeah, and I have to order a lot of stuff in. So yeah, if you're that kind of person, I don't know that. What worries me is I think a lot of people just want to fix it, and I think that that doesn't lead to enough caution with considering your risks. There are risks, considering what your plan is and having the proper care and considering these kinds of things. You know, like I just call me crazy. I'm considering those things, but I'm also not having 8 hot flashes an hour like someone I just talked to,
Yeah, do you know
you
what I
know,
mean?
and that's debilitating. So
That
yeah,
is that that's
you'll
what
do
I
whatever
mean.
you need to.
Like, So, Anne-Marie, before I let you go and enjoy the nice weather over there, because I bet it is nice and I'm not jealous of it, but what's your top three things then for perimenopause? Not menopause, because that's obviously the light at the end of the tunnel. The trenches
Yeah,
is perimenopause, isn't it?
yeah,
So, what's the top
yeah,
three things for somebody that's listening the
yeah.
now to do to kind of manage their symptoms or come to terms with the fact that this is what's happening to them?
Okay.
Top three.
So awareness is the number one thing, like accepting that it's happening. It doesn't mean you're old. It doesn't mean things are over. It just means that you're at the start of a journey that you don't know how long it's going to be and you don't know what it's going to entail. And that's why I call it a hero's journey, because you're being called to change and rise to it, and you're going to encounter some stuff along the way and have challenges, and then you're going to emerge out the other side, like just like every movie you've ever seen or any book you've ever read or poem that you've ever read. That's
Yeah.
at this the heart of that story. So knowing that, and accepting that some things are going to have to change. I feel like so many women just try to get back. I want to get back. I want to get back. And I still find myself doing that. And I've been saying lately, like, we're moving forward. So that progesterone, knowledge about it, learning the difference between progesterone and progestin, cutting through the noise about estrogen, finding someone who's progesterone informed. I think that's important. And really getting a handle on your like sleep, eating, exercise, drinking, and stress dealing with habits. That I didn't say that eloquently, but do you stuff down your emotions or do you deal with them? Do you drink too much? How are your relationships? Like that's like a lot, but those things can do you in at this time,
Yes,
particularly drinking.
I
You
think so as
really
well.
drinking is
It's
yeah.
not good. In the west of Scotland, there's a massive drinking culture, and if you go near it, everybody's like, "Nah, just put her off now, turn her off." But drinking
Yeah,
in
yeah.
perimenopause is like, just wait to the menopause. That'll be all right. You can have a wee glass then, but
After, yeah.
perimenopause, it's not a good time
And I'm
to.
not no. And I'm not excited about drinking on HRT. I'm not
No.
excited about that at all. Yeah, that seems common sense. There's not a lot of information about it, but that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense with the risks of alcohol plus that's controversial as well, but a couple of experts have said that. I just don't love the idea of women feeling better going on hormone therapy and then like drinking wine
Yeah.
daily.
No, I know, and I've got contraindications because my mum, she actually had breast cancer, and
Oh.
they believed that it was HRT that caused it for her. She was due in to get a hysterectomy. She had fibroids. So already fibroids tell you that there's like an estrogen going crazy there.
Mhm.
And at the last minute, they kept her ovaries in and they still put her in the same treatment plan, which was to go on HRT. So then she had just all this estrogen in her body. It was like, and then synthetic estrogen, everything's producing estrogen, and that's what they say caused her breast cancer. So for me, that's
And that's
always stuck in my head.
of course, and that's rare. She was taking oral estrogen. I mean, as I understand, that's rare, but that means it's going through your liver, and
Liver.
if you're something that really makes me, I don't see very often, and you see it on the integrative side, is checking to see how you're metabolizing estrogen. And there's different pathways, and there's three, I
Yes.
believe, and one of them is not good, and it means it's circulating. And I don't see the problem with doing a test to see how you do it, how you're metabolizing it before adding it in. I had fibroids as well. I had a fibroid removed, and so clearly I wasn't metabolizing it properly either. And I think that's really important. But again, that's really controversial.
It's
Did
really
that Dutch
controversial.
test? Yeah, it's crazy. Why is
And
it
it's crazy as well.
controversial?
Like fibroids are linked to like other things like your gut, and then your gut's linked to your thyroid, and it's just an interesting little journey that because the same as my mum, she fibroids, now she's got the thyroid issue, but she didn't listen.
Yep.
This is actually how I get into this whole female thing, because she didn't listen to the red flags. And if I could now go back and it's so obvious what was kind of happening. Now I know
Yeah.
all this knowledge, I'm like, shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can see the path she was on. So like the gut issues, on the pill when she
Yeah.
was young, since she was like 14, just shoved on that. Then you've
Yeah.
got the fibroids, and then you've got the thyroid, and then it was breast cancer. It turned into that eventually. Like, she's great now, she's fine, but it was just like, fuck's sake, that health journey. I see so many women on that kind of path to ruin, but nothing is really holistic over here. Like, nothing seems to be connected, or,
Yeah.
HRT maybe did cause it or whatever. It's just like so bloody, isn't it?
Yeah. And now, there's a lot of people who think that you can take estrogen if you've had breast cancer. And that also is very controversial. But I think estrogen makes things grow.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging that there are risks. And even if that's only a few women in 1,000, you're not going to be very happy if you're one of those.
No?
So having your eyes completely wide open and knowing exactly what could happen and then proceeding, that's how I want to do things. That's the way to go. And
Yes.
anyone else who's minimizing, I feel, the possibility of getting something like, yeah, I just feel, and yes, it's great for osteoporosis. I feel people are really overselling, and I'm not alone. There's still cardiovascular risks as age rises. I just interviewed someone about that. There was a review in the US, and I feel a little bit more convinced about that. But it's just a matter of saying, these are my risks and these are the benefits. And I'm going to have informed consent and eyes wide open when I go ahead. Saying there's no risks and only upside, it's just not reality
No,
to me.
it's
But
not.
I feel like scared saying that out
Yeah.
loud.
Will we be allowed to broadcast this podcast now? We've
Yeah.
slaughtered it.
Yeah.
No, I know. I understand. I just think that it's good to have two sides to things in it, and then you can take information from that side and put it together in your own little personal, instead of going to just a doctor that's maybe just one track. Like, go on the pill.
Yeah.
You've got skin problems, go on the pill. You've got a heavy period, go on the pill. It's just one thing for everything. When we're all so different, like, you metabolize estrogen different. I do as well. I'm sensitive to it, so I've got like histamine things going on. So I don't obviously metabolize estrogen that well either. So for me, I would have to be cautious of that. But my missus, she could maybe go on it. She seems fine. And if she's batshit crazy, she will be put on it, just so she knows. But it just, we are all different, but we're treated the same. And I think that is the issue as well,
We are all different. But I don't want you guys to be scared. And like,
we're
honestly,
fucking terrified. You've told us your eyelashes fell out. Everybody's shitting themselves now.
That was my own slave driving of myself.
I'm only kidding.
I am so much better. Feel so much better. Like, physically, I'm having some physical problems, but thank you. But mentally, it's like night and day. I have sorted through so many things. I have confidence and peace. And what they say about not giving as much of a care about things, I don't have patience for a lot of stupidity. Like, I'm not over functioning with people. A lot of the stuff that happened to me before. Things make a lot of sense, and I'm seeing a big picture, and like, that is true. So I can't wait to be done it.
Yeah, and you truly are doing such a good job with getting the word out there. So you've got your Instagram, which I follow, Hotflashinc, and then that's what your podcast is as well. I was just listening to it on the way over actually here.
Podcast is Hotflashinc, and then I have a Substack newsletter. So that's over. Yes. I have a website, Hotflashinc, but then website. You can get to it.
All the links will
Substack
be here.
Is like where a newsletter. Yep.
Yeah.
I love talking to you. I want to talk to you about your side of things.
Yeah. Okay. Not the now though, because I need to go and do my food shop. But we'll do it another time.
I want to talk about it right now for another hour and a half.
My missus will be on the phone like that. The fuck are you? So we
I
will
am
get
shocked you have daughters 9 or 10 because you look so young. Like, I know I messed
for
up
my
in the beginning,
sins.
but like that's when you.
It's
Because
this is so funny. That's her phoning the now.
I thought it was your sister. Oh,
This is my missus phoning right now. And I just said, what? She'll be like, where the fuck are you? You're 10 minutes over. I'm going to phone you back. See what I mean? Yeah, that's my life, Anne-Marie.
but I thought your kid was your sister's younger sister. That's
Brilliant.
how I thought you were. Yeah.
No.
I know
yeah,
I messed up in the beginning,
that.
but that's what
I'll take that. It's good. So anyway, we'll keep in touch.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Thank you
And
so
I'm going
much.
to post all your stuff because I do think it's brilliant, and we are doing the Lord's work. We're just saving women, just one by one.
Stay strong. We need to,
unite. Right, but thank you. Thanks a lot, mate. You can go and enjoy your day.